All right, relax.
You done?
Yeah. Let's go. Keep in, bro.
Never.
Going back as long as I remember. If you talk to most of my kids, I have 5, but they would tell, if someone says, well, how long has your dad been involved in the martial arts? Most of the time they're going to respond and say, I don't ever remember him not being. So all of my kids were born what we call on the mat, you know, so as soon as they were able to be on the mat while we trained, they would be on the mat crawling around and training. So it's a family tradition, but we all have other occupations. I'm a retired military officer, and then after retiring from the military, I worked for the government for a little while, selling weapons legally to other countries. And then was a business owner here in Knoxville, and pretty much retired and stayed here from that time on it. And as Professor Cobb said, Nick is an 8th grade teacher. David also teaches, and so everybody has professions outside of the martial arts. But the martial arts is what we pass down from family member to family member. My wife is a martial artist, all my children are martial artists, my uncles, cousins, everybody that I know is martial arts because it's just what we do. So we're a big family of martial arts people. What we teach, this is a psychology and social sciences thing that we're having here, and martial arts fits in really, really good with that. Because what people don't realize with the martial arts is that it's not only about self-protection, it's about self-perfection also. So there's a lot of mental aspects that go into the martial arts. Certainly you have to be able to become capable of feeling pain and to continue on even when you're not very comfortable. It's a long path that you take in the martial arts, so it takes many, many years for somebody to get to a certain level of the martial arts that a lot of people know as black belt in the martial arts, but that's the beginning of the martial arts. That's at that point in time, it's ready now to really start learning. We teach a martial art called KENpo, which is of Chinese and Hawaiian origin and came to the mainland United States in the early 50s. But we also teach other martial arts because through the years where we would find a weakness, we would add to the martial arts that we teach. So we kind of call the house that we teach out of, I guess you might say, a little acronym. I'm going to put it up here. Can everybody see? That's a rousing yes. Big long word. It's pronounced Filkenjutsu. And what it really means is Filipino Arts, KENpo Arts, JUdo, and Jiu JiTSU Arts. So the total sum of what we teach comes from a lot of places. The Philippines, Japan, China, comes from Hawaii, comes from Brazil, and there's a lot of aspects to it. All right. Normally what we do is we start students off by trying to get them to move, because most people when they come and train martial arts, they're really stiff. One of my teachers used to tell me that the martial arts isn't about learning new skills, it's about unlearning all the bad things that you learn. So when you're a young child, pretty much you learn how to walk correctly, and you learn to do things correctly. You're down crawling correctly, rolling correctly, doing all these things correctly, and as life goes on, you start developing bad habits, and so we have to kind of undo these bad habits. But people have a tendency to be very stiff, and it's hard to move. So usually in the beginning stages, we introduce them to kickboxing, and the first type of kickboxing we do is what we call American rules and European rules. It's a lot like Western boxing that you would see on TV here. So some basic pad work that we might do. And you see what we try to emphasize here is some speed and a little bit of body movement on top. We also borrow from Thailand, and we borrow Muay Thai. It's a style of kickboxing that's not so much big on hands, but it's very big on the legs, elbows, what we call a clinch aspect, and knees. So I'll have them demonstrate a little bit of pad work with that. Good. Okay, so that's Muay Thai. So we've got kind of a full spectrum here: the hands, the feet, the knees, the elbows, headbutts, anything that we can use in full range. Okay. The next aspect that we usually introduce people to is a martial art that comes from the Philippines, and it's called Eskrima. Some people call it Kali. This is an art that teaches people weapons, but it's a full art, so it has empty hand aspects to it. It has kicking, it has punching and everything else, but the main vehicle that's used to teach people are a long stick. You just hold one of those up. This is a 28-inch stick, and that kind of represents a blunt weapon, so think like pipe, bottle, things like that. And the training also includes edged weapons. It's a very detailed system of edged weapons. Okay. So when we begin people with two-stick, there's two-stick and single-stick. The two-stick training, it tries to make people a little bit ambidextrous so they can use both sides. And we have start with some basic drills. This is like a basic 4-count drill maybe. Good. So what they're trying to do here is teach each hand to work separately. One hand's doing one thing, the other hand's doing something else. And we could take that to maybe a 6-count drill, a 5. Good. And then we go to the single weapon. And there's a lot of things we do with single weapons, but just kind of to give a little bit of an example here, we'll do a little bit more of a close range thing. It looks like this. This is called a sombrado, just a little give and take. You saw them do this at the beginning. So each one's getting a chance at attacking, and each one's getting a chance at defending. It's not a knife defense philosophy that someone attacks you with like the psycho overhand and then you get the knife and you flip them over and things like that. Our philosophy is that knives move very fast. So we accept the fact that if we are going to get attacked by a knife, that we will get cut. So nobody ever goes through a knife fight without getting cut. The survivor is the one that oozes as opposed to gushes. But there's about a 3% survival rate when you get real close up with knives. And if you talk to law enforcement, they'll most likely tell you they fear a knife more than they would fear a gun. So we use drills to do this. These are just sensitivity drills. We'll show a couple here. What we're trying to do is move the path of the knife away from the attack. These are just, we start a very simple drill, being able to stop the knife. And obviously nobody would just stop the knife. There would be things that would happen after this. So they go into a little bit of detail. All this is just trying to keep the knife away from you. So you see in this exchange, they're going back and forth, moving the knife out of the way and trying to cut each other. Okay, next thing we're going to take a look at is what we call combinations. And this comes from an art that we borrow from China and Hawaii called KENpo. It's an empty hand art. It includes kicking and punching. We'll take a look at a couple of these self-defense techniques. Punches. Probably similar to what a lot of people see in traditional martial arts. And then the other thing we borrow from traditional martial arts are things called forms, or in Japan they'd be called katas, in China they'd be called pinyans. And I'm sure everybody's seen Karate Kid and katas forms. But what we do with the forms are to teach a single principle. So we teach about 15 forms, but each form is focused on teaching one principle of movement. I'm going to have them demonstrate one of the forms. I'm not going to talk in detail about what it is, but you'll kind of get to see a little bit of what they do. It's to train body. You'll hear a lot of screaming. A lot of people ask, like, what's all the screaming and yelling about? If anyone has ever seen an altercation out in the street, I guarantee the two people going at it, you're going to hear a lot of screaming. So what we're trying to do is control this so that type of exclamation is also used as a breathing exercise and comes out at the right time. So it's not something that they're just doing randomly, they're doing it at a specified time. Each is different, every person is different, so it's not going to sound exactly like it. Okay, the other thing we borrow is Jiu-Jitsu, and the Jiu-Jitsu that we teach, that Judo comes from Japan, and some of it comes from Brazil. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so we'll take a look at some of that. Self-defense and okay. Any questions?
That's just fantastic.
We all went back here.
So you talked about where they came from, but why did they originate?
Why did the arts originate?
Yeah, like why did they come about?
Okay. Has everybody ever heard of Bodhidharma or Buddha? The martial arts really originated in India. A lot of people think more like Japan and China. What happened is Bodhidharma traveled to China, and there were Buddhist monks at that time there that he considered to be very lazy. So he began to teach them movements. The movements that he taught largely are what you can see maybe in Tai Chi today. And he trained these monks in these movements, and each of the monks started changing things, you know. So it's just like personalities. As they traveled, they took what they had, they changed a little, and then the arts began developing. So that's kind of just a short story. From there, it spread through Asia. A lot of the martial arts that we got came via Okinawa. The Chinese arts didn't really spread readily. What would happen is fishermen in Okinawa used to be over in China, and they would learn the arts and bring them back to Okinawa, and then the Okinawans taught the Japanese, and the Japanese taught Hawaiians, people that eventually ended up in Hawaii and spread to the mainland United States. It's a very detailed process. If you ever come to where we teach, we have a family tree. So if you really want to know whether you're training in what I consider authentic martial arts, you should have an instructor that can literally point to his name on the family tree and trace his lineage back from teacher to teacher to teacher, all the way to Bodhidharma. If they can't do that, then you got to start asking what happened. So if you come to my or his academy, I would say, you should be able to say, show me who your teacher was, their teacher, and we'll take you all the way back hundreds of years from teacher to teacher to teacher. Yes?
What's the youngest you teach?
We usually start at 4 years old. At that age, from ages 4 to 7, typically we're just focused on skill building. It's not necessarily memorizing lots of the stuff you saw here, but building life skills and safety skills. Life skills are going to be things like respect, discipline, focus, coordination, things at that age that they're going to need to succeed not just in martial arts but in anything. Then safety skills are things like stranger awareness, bully prevention, health and nutrition, fire safety, all those kind of things.
What are the age groups from 4 to?
We usually go 4 to 7, then 8 to 12, then 13 up to whenever they're ready to progress into the adult class. So at that next age bracket, at 8, then they really have to start memorizing some of these techniques. But we'll save a lot of the more technical stuff when they get into the young adult class. Once they're teenagers, when I was a teenager, we didn't have a teenager class, but now we've got a class just for that age group so they can train with their peers.
Would you teach all of the students all of the skills, or more pick and choose for the student in different classes?
Martial arts really is going to be specific to every individual. You know, some people are going to come in with certain strengths or weaknesses that might take them in different directions. Over the years, my father's been doing this a very, very long time. We've designed a curriculum that fits just about, I'd say, 90% of individuals. That they follow this curriculum, they're going to get where they need to go. Somewhere along that line, though, each individual student starts to progress towards certain things. You know, I'm looking out at the crowd and can see a couple of our students and know already, okay, I know this person's a lot stronger in their kicking. This person's much stronger grappling. This person really progresses more towards weapons. So each martial artist will end up unique, but the curriculum can start everybody at the same spot.
I wonder what Professor Bruce on his path to Filkenjutsu, what led you up?
I sat next to a kid in math class in high school. I said, hey, let's go. That's when the Kung Fu TV series was on. He said, hey, I'm going to go take this Kung Fu stuff. And I said, oh, okay, I'll go with you. He left, I stayed.
And his first start actually wasn't in what we teach now. He started in Taekwondo and Judo. Just didn't quite necessarily find everything he was looking for. Eventually found KENpo, and KENpo is what he really fell in love with. From KENpo, he saw there were still some holes, some places where the art wasn't as strong as he thought it could be, and filled those holes with things like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like you saw today, that really focuses on when the fight's really close range. The weapons, KENpo had a lot of traditional weapons, but not weapons you would find, you know, modern day. You don't walk around and find a pair of nunchucks sitting there. So I found the Filipino martial arts that teach you to use anything from a stick to a dagger, any blunt or edged weapon you can pick up and use as a weapon in a real altercation.
And that's really part of the martial arts journey is, you know, you start out, like we were saying, you can start out with a basic curriculum and you start progressing through, but you know, once you reach your basic mastery, you know, like with a bachelor's degree, or I was going to make a comparison. Once you get your black belt, that's kind of like your associate's or your bachelor's degree, and then you want to continue, right? Like you don't just stop there. There's more to learn. You're going to constantly pick and choose and say, okay, I want to go study this. I need to fill this. I don't know much about this art. I don't feel like I'm comfortable with weapons, and you start picking and choosing and really making yourself a complete, wholesome martial artist. So it's a lifelong journey. It never stops.
So who here is trained martial arts? Put your hand down if you're one of our students. What did you train?
I trained in Taekwondo, Judo, Shaolin Kung Fu, and boxing.
Awesome. Good for you. Are you still training?
Still training Shaolin Kung Fu, yes.
Good for you. Good job. Keep it up. Other questions? One here.
So since this is a social science class, even though I'm not involved in it, that's not to say, can you talk about the aspect of martial arts as far as like conflict avoidance and self-respect and you know, that kind of thing? A lot of times people look at martial arts and they think it's fighting, and that's not really all there is to it. I thought maybe.
No, not at all.
Absolutely.
We as instructors have taken what we've learned, you know, out and tested it as much as we could possibly test it. We've trained a lot of law enforcement people. We've trained a lot of military people. These guys have been training military people. We had contracts with the federal government for several years. We trained the Army, trained the Air Force. We've trained SEALs. We have students currently who are SEALs. So we've done a lot of training. That's the combatives aspect of it. But the first thing I tell everybody when I train them is the martial arts isn't for tough guys. The martial arts was developed for the weak. That's what it's all about. When the martial arts was originally created, it was a way for people who didn't have combative skills to fight those who had not only combative skills, but weapons. So it was something that was developed for the weak. With that in mind, that means that martial arts should be taught to anyone. So it doesn't matter what age you are, it doesn't matter what gender you are, it really doesn't matter what kind of physical condition you're in, you can still assimilate the martial arts into your life. As you do that, you become a little more confident in your daily environment, walking around and feeling safe. Does everybody feel safe here in the Knoxville area? No creation? Pretty safe place?
No.
The crime index rate in Knoxville is higher than the city of New York. A lot of people don't realize that. That means the per capita crime rate. So your chance of getting violently beaten in Knoxville is greater than your chance of being violently beaten in downtown Brooklyn or Manhattan or Queens or something like that. So a lot of people don't realize that. But once you feel confident or once you feel a little bit safe and secure in your environment, then what happens is you start getting a little more peace of mind. And things start changing. When you learn martial arts as a young person, like the two of them have, if you met them outside of this environment and you never knew them, you would never guess the capabilities that they have. You'd never even know because they're very comfortable in their surroundings because they don't feel threatened. So once you take that threat away, then you become a little more peaceful mentally. The other thing with martial arts is it will make you focus. You'll become very focused on what you do, so your performance in most things will get better because you'll be able to focus better on what you do. And of course, it'll enhance your physical capabilities. So that leads to a little better mental health.
If you pardon just an observation and not a question, I'd like to throw out to you that, you know, I've seen several different places where I've studied some of the martial arts, but one of the things that you really have to take into account when you're picking a place to study the martial arts is, are you going to be safe there? And, you know, P and these guys have always made all the students feel very comfortable that they're in a safe environment. They're learning how to do this stuff in a safe way. And personally, you know, I can say I got really sick and had gotten very weak. And I had to kind of start training myself back. And, you know, I had to start with a personal trainer. But after that, it was like, you know, I can pay the personal trainer to stand over me and say 5 more push-ups, or I can do this. This is a lot more fun. But it's a really nice thing to just, you learn it, and it's fun, but it's also, this is a safe place to do it, so that's very important.
You was talking about how it helps you concentrate in taking classes. Do you get a lot of kids with like ADD and stuff?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a huge help. Huge help. And just having an outlet, you know, a place to get rid of some energy, and then having to, and even if it's in small doses at first, stand still, you know, and really focus and listen to their teacher on what they're supposed to do, and then take something home to memorize that they have to work on. And you have this gradual progression through the belts. It gives them something to really try to accomplish outside of school that then influences their what they can do at school. So, big time.
And on the education side of things, I can throw in here, it's very kinesthetic, right? So the ADD kids or ADHD kids want to move, they want to touch, they want to feel, right? So martial arts gives them that outlet, like you were saying. So it kind of, it allows them to channel that into something that's very healthy and is promoted. Whereas instead of sitting in class or tapping the desk or all of those different behaviors, martial arts helps that for sure.
Jack, I don't want to put you on the spot. How old are you?
68,
How old are you when you got your black belt?
67.
He's already forgetting. Jack's my oldest student. And I don't mean in age. I mean, he's been training with me the longest since I came to the Knoxville area. But Jack will tell you, I always tell Jack, I always remember his first words to me. He's like, and Jack was younger than me then. He goes, I know I'm older, but I don't want to be treated any different than the rest of the young guys. I said, don't worry, you won't.
He told the truth about that.
But anybody can train martial arts. So like I said, I don't care about your gender. I don't care about your age. I've taught people who had handicaps. I'm a Vietnam era veteran. I was teaching martial arts at the end of the Vietnam War. I had guys that were missing legs, missing arms. Guys that had been shot in the head. I had guys that used to literally have pieces of shrapnel that you could feel in their skin. I don't care what you have wrong with you or you think you have wrong with you, there's nothing wrong with you. You can train. We used to have one student that we used to train in a wheelchair because he was paralyzed in martial arts. So there is no barrier to training martial arts except your own created barriers. And if you train martial arts and if you dedicate time to it, it will change you into a person that you can't imagine that you could become. It has some significant things that it does to your life.
Yeah, one more.
What's martial arts?
What you just saw. That's martial arts.
It's karate.
My last name is Arts. And I'm Martial.
David, last question.
Yeah, go for it.
Does this have something to do with why you were such a great student?
Absolutely. 100%.
Mental focus?
100%.
No, they didn't have a choice. If there were cameras installed in my house during their lifetime, and even to this day, what you would see is something about, we weren't the family that watched TV, or we were the family that would be eating dinner and talking about a technique, and the next thing you know, the coffee table in the living room and the couch would be moved, and that and they had a mom who could beat them both up. All right, thank you.